Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the Cloud Defensive Rein 2.0. The Rein is one of my go-to lights, still is. I have a number of Reins, both in the 18350 and the 18650 configuration, on PCCs, submachine guns, rifles, long-range rifles. And I gotta be honest with you, I didn't see a need for a Rein 2.0. Not in regards to the aesthetics or the overall body or bezel size, but I'm always looking for more lumens and more candela, so if there was going to be a Rein 2.0, I was kind of looking for that. But other people wanted a less bulky light. They wanted a bezel that wasn't quite as, I guess they find it not aesthetically pleasing, and maybe they wanted some weight savings. They wanted the light body to be able to sit closer to the rail, depending on their particular rifle. And Cloud listened. Not only did they listen to that, but they also listened to redesigning of their included or their proprietary momentary and constant on switching system. So the Rein 2.0 has more features than just a new name. There are two versions. For the purpose of the review, I'm reviewing the full size, which is the 18650, which comes in at 71,000 candela and 1100 lumens for a runtime approximate of 150 minutes, which is pretty awesome. Now, I reviewed the high candela of the 18650. They sent me an 18350 as well. I'm doing the video just on the 18650 because the only significant difference overall is going to be your actual light output. So I'm looking at 71,000 candela with 1100 lumens for 150 minutes of runtime on the 18650 battery. Just like before, it comes in a kind of a condensed kit. You get a battery, you get a charger, you get your initial mounting options and your proprietary momentary constant on switching system, and the body itself also has a switching system. Carried over from the original Rein, you still have that battery jack, which means you can tighten the battery into the body of the light, so during recoil or whatever crazy stuff you're going to get into, the battery is not able to bounce and jar back and forth and negatively impact your electronic connections. Their light temperature is optimized for 5200K, which is a warmer temp light. For me, in an urban environment, I really appreciate that. When I'm out on a range or I'm out in a rural environment, the cooler light, you're closer to 6K or even higher light temps, they don't really bother me as much, and I actually almost prefer them for unobstructed long distance on steel type of shooting. But for cutting through those photonic barriers, that ambient light, that light pollution that we see in almost any environment outside of the wilderness or an actual range for low light concerns, that warmer temp definitely helps better with those barriers, and I really appreciate that a lot more. The great thing about the Rein, of course, and the Rein 2.0, you've got some size savings and some weight savings of the original, also over their competitors. Of course, I'm not doing a comparison, so you'll have to look into that yourself. And the switching system, it's of course a lead wire switching system, and it's got a momentary and a constant on, which has been redesigned to facilitate some of the recommendations from Cloud customers, so they listen to the feedback. I actually like the old switch just fine, but the new switch definitely has, to my feel, to my manipulation during the 2,000 round review process, it's an easier press, it's an easier activation. I've got a increased ridge bumper guard there to cut down on the, I guess, accidental activations or negligent activations of your light. That's something you don't want to do. Either gear inadvertently bumping against it or your grip activating it when you didn't want it to, which can be a big deal depending on what you're using your light and your rifle for. I went ahead and mounted mine on my PWS Mark 111. This is my Mod 2. You'll notice that this was my previous Sage edition from quite a few years ago, which is still my favorite long piston gun. And I hadn't really used it for a while, hadn't really shot it, so I was like, let me go ahead and throw this light on there and go ahead and run it through the 2,000 round review process. Now, one of the departures for a 2,000 round review process of the light is not really doing any accuracy checks. I'm just going to be getting a feel for the light, using the light for my normal low light practice, which I try to do as often as possible, taking the light with me on the road for any kind of low light stuff I'm going to be teaching, and of course doing durability tests, which includes the drop test. So initial impressions with the Rein 2.0 is I definitely see a significant difference in beam performance and hotspot performance over the previous Rein generation. That being said, I still like the Rein 1.0. I don't see anything wrong with it. However, I do notice a consistent difference in hotspot and spill, cornea, corona, what do you want to call it, performance. My throw, my spill, my candela, my lux, everything is more acute, if you will, but not so much that my hotspot is obnoxiously tight at very, very close distances. Candela is what we need in order for the rifle to reach out and touch things. Sure, the rifle can shoot 100, 200, 300 yards, but when I think about from a self-defense standpoint, I don't care what you're using the rifle for, home defense, military, law enforcement, if you can't see that far and you can't positively identify that far, you have no business shooting that far. For a non-magnified optic, that's probably going to be restricted depending on your vision to 25, 45 yards in a low light environment, depending on kind of ambient lighting, backlighting, side lighting, whatever kind of photonic barriers that you normally have to overcome. The Cloud does a very good job of giving me PID at those extended distances. In order to shoot further than that, I would need quality magnified glass, like a 1:4, 1:6, 1:8. For extreme long range, outside of a military application, which would probably be night vision centric anyway, you're probably going to use your light to illuminate a steel plate that's painted white, and life's going to be pretty easy. So there's a bit of a confirmation bias sometimes with lights. I'm like, well, I can hit steel at 200 with it. Cool. Could you actually positively identify a threat at that distance? That's a harder question to answer, which requires some shoot, don't shoot drills at 200 yards, which a lot of people just aren't going to do. Manipulations on the switching system have been, from first to last round, very, very easy. After I got my initial feel for the light with those first 500 rounds, shooting it both during the day, just working the manipulations, and then of course, more importantly, using it at night for my various practices that I do, went ahead and got through that first 500 rounds, getting a feel for the changes, getting a feel for the new profile, for the change in the output, change in beam profile, and then went ahead and did the burn down, which is 500 rounds as quickly as possible to see if those 500 rounds would cause any issues that the same round count over a much longer period of time would probably not cause. So, you know, 500 rounds in 3 to 4 minutes versus 500 rounds in 3 to 4 hours, days, weeks, months, years, what have you. So here is your 500 round burn down. First to last round, no flickering, no movement, no issue. The light did get pretty warm because I ran it on the whole time, and it's right there by that Surefire War Comp. Another reason why I chose this rifle for the review is because I was going to mount it next to one of my more abusive muzzle devices. The War Comp, I generally will shoot this thing suppressed. I do like the War Comp. I like it a lot better when there's a suppressor on it. That being said, I ran it unsuppressed just so it could be right there near that muzzle blast first to last round. And the majority of the review for the 2,000 round review, I ran unsuppressed for that specific reason. I wanted to see how the lens handled the carbon buildup. I also wanted to see how the bezel was able to hold up to that concussive muzzle blast for 2,000 iterations. After that 500 round burn down, just continue to use the light. Of course, drop tests occur every 500 rounds. Drop test is pretty straightforward. I try to drop the rifle right on the weapon light. So every 500 rounds I was doing that from a shoulder height, dropping it in the drop zone or wherever I happen to be on concrete or pavement, some hard surface. And I'm mainly looking at the performance of the light itself. Occasionally, when I've done light reviews in the past, I've had my mounting system, or one time even my rail broke, but I'm looking at the light. How does the light stand up to that drop? And of course, as soon as I do a drop, I go ahead and do a functions check, take the light apart, make sure everything is good to go, put it back together, just to make sure there's no issues. So every 500 rounds did a shoulder height drop test on this, and while the rifle didn't really appreciate it, the light made it through first to last drop, no issues whatsoever. I didn't have any flickering, fading, any switch failures, any wire failures. Light just continued to function, which is exactly what I expect, because I didn't think Cloud was going to introduce a less durable light with the Rein 2.0. Light performance is excellent. For the cost, you're getting a lot of features that you might otherwise, and accessories that you might otherwise have to buy separately. You're getting your switching system. One of the things that, I don't want to say I don't like it, I would say that I'm waiting for someone to come up with options just in case there's something out there I'm not thinking of, is it is a proprietary switching system. There's nothing wrong with Cloud switching system. Don't get me wrong, I think it's awesome. But I used to think some other switching systems were the best ever, and then someone invented something, and I'm like, one, I was mad that I didn't think of it, and two, I was like, I got to get that immediately, because it was more ergonomic for my particular style of shooting. Depending on the firearm you're putting this on, even though this switch is not quite as bulky as the Rein 1.0, some guns don't lend themselves very well to their proprietary pressure pad system. So that's something that you definitely have to be aware of. Of course, you can forgo the switching system and just run a tail cap. They do sell that model, it's tail cap only. But eventually I think someone's probably going to produce a third-party switching system that maybe a single button, something like that. Maybe Unity Tactical could get involved. That would be super cool because I love their switches. But that's really only an issue for me on when I have minimal rail space on smaller guns. Like I have a SCAR 16 SBR, which is 10.5 inches, and I do run a Rein 1.0 on that. And the switch takes up literally all the rail space I have available. So if I wanted to run a secondary device like a laser, I got to figure out where to put the switching system for that, or I have to go with the master fire controls over the top, which is not always easy to do with the overall height of the SCAR rail system. So that's a very firearm specific issue that I'm running into. But I've had that same issue on other guns like CZ Scorpions are the same thing. The rail is very tall, so it's very hard to go thumb over the top if you're already navigating other switching systems and foregrips and hand stops and whatever else you're putting on your gun. That being said, that's going to be a small niche issue for certain types of guns. I think as a package deal, you can't really beat everything that comes with the 2.0. I think this is, and I'll tell you, I'll be the first to admit it, I didn't see a point in the Rein 2.0 other than the increased output. But I do see the improved switching, and the body profile lends itself better to tucking closer to the gun, which I do really appreciate. And I feel like now they've finally gotten past some of the complaints that some people had when they initially launched, and everybody was, as they should be, they wanted to verify the quality of the product before they trusted it. Now I feel like Cloud Defensive is definitely one of the top brands, and they're going to continue to innovate, continue to put out good products like this. And it's such a great time to be alive when it comes to light technology and weapon lights and pretty much everything firearm related. We're finally seeing a lot of quality products get us away from the gimmicks of the early 2000s and get us into some more substantive changes and advancements from companies, and Cloud is definitely putting out stuff that I really appreciate. So for 2,000 rounds, no issues, which is kind of boring to say, but it's also kind of what I expected, because I have a number, like I said, of the Rein 1.0s as well as the Owls. And they've served me very well on various guns for various different platforms, various different reasons. And now with the 2.0, I'm definitely going to be getting a couple more to kind of phase out some of my older lights that I haven't quite gotten rid of. I still have some last generation Surefires and some other lights that need to be updated with more lumens, more candela. With two profiles available, if you're looking for a weapon light, this should definitely be one of your top considerations, especially if you're trying to get as many accessories right out the gate. So you're going to get everything you need pretty much for general mounting, except maybe depending on which kit you purchase, you may have to buy your M-LOK adapter or something like that. If you're running 1913, you should be good to go. Comes with the battery, comes with the charger, everything's good to go. Go ahead and assemble it, put it on your gun, and you're done. Versus hunting down all these various aspects that you may have to get with some other lights. So definitely take that consideration when you're shopping for your light. If you want something that's going to perform very, very well in a wide degree of lighting environments, I don't think there is a better light than the Cloud Defensive for that specific purpose. I'm Eric Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.